So I hope you had a good lunch and you're well fed and all set for the afternoon session. This next session is titled Digital Twins and the Three Horizons. We have quite a large lineup of speakers and contributors to this session. And one of the features of this session is we need some of your input to this as well. So we're going to make this interactive. We'll have a few short presentations followed by a panel discussion in which we're going to discuss some of the results in the room that you answer. So when we get to that panel discussion point, please take your phone out and scan the QR code on the Mentimeter poll. And part of the panel discussion is going to be discussing that exact thing. So that also goes for the online audience as well. Please, we'll be putting a link in the chat function there. So please also enter your answers. Please also try to put it from the perspective of your business and give as candid as answers as possible, and then we'll discuss that on stage. So the topic of digital twins is obviously here to stay, and we fully understand that digital twins are an important part of the ecosystem that we work in. In 2019, we actually started a working group at the Düsseldorf Summit on digital twins, and we created a working group. The working group actually met many times, and we developed a lot of content and thought leadership around the topic of digital twins. So we had a lot of great contributions from the industry, and some of the original members of that group are here to talk a bit about some of the work that's advanced in our thinking. So lots of continuity there around it, and I think we've gotten to a really exciting place where we are aware of digital twins today, the digital twins of tomorrow, and the future of digital twins, and how that will impact the industry that we're in today. It's a really exciting time, I think. We can see from earlier presentations today when we heard some of those impulse presentations around, IFC 4.3 today, and Greg then talked about the future and that sort of bit in the middle that Leon was talking about. And digital twins sits right at that point where it's driving the conversation around how we digitize our industry and find those efficiency savings and deliver sustainability for our community. So really, really excited about this session. And we'll get started. So our first speaker today is Bart Brink, who's actually the leader of the Digital Twin Working Group. I have a lot to thank Bart for continuing to keep us on the right path. So thank you, Bart, for that. He's also the owner at Twinit Consultancy, and he's also the digital director at VK Architects and Engineering. So Bart, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming back after lunch and listening to the inspiring topic of digital twins. And honestly, I wasn't part of that original founding group of digital twins, but I will go back to something they produced and I joined later on. And that is this white paper published almost 3 years ago. And the actual date was May. And I think this was an important result out of the discussions that have been held, started from Düsseldorf. This paper has been more than 30,000 times being downloaded over the last couple of years. It has been quoted from in academic journals, but also last week I was at another conference attending virtually where it was also referred to. And so I think what was in this white paper was really important as a starting point to bring digital twins and the buildingSMART community closer together. And before I continue, I would like to elaborate a little bit of the key concepts, what was written down at that time, because I do believe that they're still really relevant today. And so, having said so, a lot of credits to the people who have been working on that at that time, where many of them are still in the audience today. So first of all, it identified digital twins. What are we speaking about? I think it's a buzzword out there. But in essence, for me, and I think also the way it's described in the paper, it's really about a digital replica of the physical environment, whether that environment is the built environment or all kind of other environments around us. And for me, that's about two purposes, which I see around me. One is to better understand the world of today, bringing together all sorts of data, get information, analysis, analyze those, and use them to make better informed decisions on one hand. The other side is shaping the world of tomorrow, which is really about making future-proof decisions towards that future. And there you see also a couple of other concepts coming into play, which has been touched on briefly today, like AI, simulation, and etc. Secondly, and that was the essence of this white paper, it did not speak too much only about a digital twin of an instance, but it introduced the vision of an ecosystem of digital twins, which also builds up quite nicely to earlier discussions this morning. It's not just about how we make sure that digital twins seamlessly uses data, but how it starts connecting and speaking to other digital twins, and how it's become an ecosystem. But with getting to that ecosystem, it also becomes extra complex, because we need to start working and collaborating with other parts of the industry, which we didn't yet collaborate that much before. Thirdly, the white paper did quite nicely position what is the role of buildingSMART in this whole development. And of course, and especially if you start thinking about an ecosystem, as said also this morning, an ecosystem can only be achieved in an open manner. Because then we can also connect what needs to be connected, what we already know now, and what we want to connect in the future. And that means that, by definition, buildingSMART has a key role to play in aligning and collaborating and inspiring each other. And aligning not only the technical parts, but also what are the proper use cases to focus on? What is the proper terminology? And how to deal with new challenges that appear when digital twins were around, for example, security and privacy. And the fourth part of this paper said a little bit about, okay, and now how forward? And that's also, I think, why we are here back on stage today. Developing digital twins is a so widely broad topic. It's the point of the horizon on the roadmap showed earlier. It's a collaborative effort. And so the white paper did introduce a couple of topics we need to work on, have been working on, and will working on, like the standards for data, the standards for data management, and how to deal with privacy and security. But there's so much more to it. If we take a little bit, that was 3 years ago, and it feels for me still as relevant for today. Although two things happened since then, of course. And the market did progress. And 3 years down the line, we have seen an increase of national digital twin roadmaps emerging. Conferences emerging around the topic. A lot of debate, discussion, but also maybe confusion. But I think we are making progress. We take several steps. And we see that not only on the individual asset level. I think the rise of urban digital twins or digital twins at city level, in my home country, the Netherlands, it's all over that place. So I think there is happening a lot on the positive side that gives us right, interesting examples. However, I think we still just tap the initial potential, but how do we scale this up further across the industry, that not this community only, but also the ones not here become part of that journey? How do you make sure we don't only focus too much on that understanding the physical world of today? A lot of examples are still there, relevant, but how are we going to collaborate towards the future on that one? So there's a lot potential, a lot of movement, but also a moment to step up, in our view, as a community. And that brings me to what happens more on the organizational side. The white paper discussed extensively already. We started a digital twin working group in COVID times, which was focusing on inspiring and aligning initially, which I think did a okay job to at least get connected and continue the dialogue. But we also felt we need to speed up and step up to be back at stage today, which where we formed a kind of digital twin thinking tank. And I briefly want to introduce the 3 horizon model coming out of that discussions we had in this smaller team today, but hopefully also in the summits to come, to really get you involved in this process. And this is really a simplified version of reality, but I think it aligns quite nicely with the roadmap introduced earlier. And the roadmap we want to work on really needs to inform and gradually be incorporated in the buildingSMART wider roadmap as such. And it shows that, okay, we have that future vision, an ecosystem of digital twins or connected digital twins even better. And Mark will elaborate much more about what we mean with that and what are the latest views are on that. We have the realism of today. We heard a lot about it already, but Frank will elaborate in his talk also a little bit. And we need to go to that second horizon. And there we need you. As I said already in the white paper, but also we truly believe this is not a small team-led initiative. This is a community-wide effort where we need to collaborate, and we need to collaborate with ones not here in a proper way going forward. So I think the Horizon 2 one is where the question sits, what needs to happen there? And I think we could have learned from this morning that it's not just about technology or information-related innovation. It's also about social innovation, but it's also about economical innovation. Eh? So how do we get the benefits out there? How do we build up that story of connected digital twins in a proper way? Having said that, I would like to hand over to the next one, introduced by Aidan.
Thanks, Bart. Thanks, Bart. That's really interesting. And I think one thing to add to that, and why we're here today, we didn't know the answer to Horizon 2, and we felt that this was a great opportunity to ask the audience to tell us what we didn't know. So this is part of this process. We're now going to shift a little over to talking about Horizon 1, and I'd like to welcome Frank Weiss, who's the Senior Director of Products at Oracle, who's going to talk a little bit about Horizon 1 from his perspective. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Aidan. So, yeah, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invite and the opportunity to speak to you. I'm pretty colorful today because you see a victim of the strike in my home country, and my luggage is still out there in the ether. So, welcome to reality. So, today we want to speak about let's see where we are. That's not the right one. That's Bart's presentation. Here we are. Yeah. So digital twins are a very exciting topic, and actually I'm sharing a secret that I really love that because I think that's really happening everywhere. It's in the industry since 1963. And according to Gartner, the sheer size of digital twins is about $48 billion in 27. And if we look at that in smart city context, it's 10 times. 10 times. So we speak about value. So, but how does this estimates echo to current challenges of today? So in the World Economic Forum, I think in January, and even in the news every day, we hear typical challenges. Those are global instability, it's energy crisis, high inflation rates, it's global warming, and also labor shortage. So many of those challenges, which we all more or less face in business or privately, they can be translated into needs. And in our industry, some of them might be fulfilling ESG criteria, environmental, social governance. Lots of companies at the moment have to spend tons of money to make that, the European Green Deal and so forth. Second, it's about digitization or digitalization as well, to reinvent how to do things. And just recently with the economic crisis, it's also about, again, just improve productivity. As simple as that. Now, digital twins are a technology and they are an approach. So that means they can help to address some of those challenges in the future. So what do we find today? On one hand, we can find many interesting technologies, and we heard a couple of them in the morning in many sessions. Related to GIS systems, GIS databases. It's about different type of viewer and different strengths and weaknesses of those viewers. Powerful and high secure cloud environments. It's integrations to real-time data. And I think real-time data, that's really like the change from black and white TV to now live and in color. Yeah, I expect that this will be a massive change for our industry. And then, of course, not to speak about robotics. We all have seen this, the symbol video recently, common data environments, and lots of things we display in the Oracle Innovation Lab. But also a couple of standardization initiatives are popping up in my country, the DIN-SPEC 91607, where communities and cities are trying to really standardize what does digital twin means even beyond construction. I want to share now 5 specific aspects of which explain where we are and why. Starting with a lack of awareness. So many organizations do not fully understand what digital twin means. Yeah, it means a lot, or it means even nothing. So that means if they cannot understand what the benefits are for their business and their use cases, they cannot really understand the potential for an end-to-end automation. And models with a bit of integrations are excuse me for saying, isn't it like Hollywood digital twins? Yeah, I've heard that from many customers, and that's not enough because it not really addresses a problem yet. And I think we need to come to the situation that the education outside of that holy halls, not here, because here we meet under each other. We need to educate the market outside, the decision makers, to take the right decision. So I mean, we need more education to really leverage that business potential. Which leads to the second one, which is complexity. Many companies are just starting to apply a meaningful BIM approach, partly with using Open BIM. Again, we had a couple of very exciting examples in the morning. However, there is still a misunderstanding of a digital model, a digital shadow, or a digital twin where you have a real-time data connection between the reality and the digital copy of it. Now, there is still a thinking in contractually and partly technically. And despite of integrating common data environments at the moment, those obstacles are out there at the decision maker level. And that's what we need to change to adopt digital twins. Hence, we need common data environments, which are data and insight driven, because they can really help to overcome that. They will pave the path towards the creation of digital twins from the start. Moving to data integration. So to create a useful digital twins, loads of data must be collected from a variety of sources in different formats, from different systems, and it's not easy to integrate that. So the good news, and that's what we got from parts in our organization, telco carriers have a natural problem. Are you aware what that could be? They have invested a hell of a money in 5G, but they have no content. They have no content to pay back. And there is like an alliance where these things come together, where in our industry, that can help, and the prognosis is showing that. So large vendors, as Oracle, we already work in lots of integrations with our cloud, but we are convinced it needs more. It needs standardization across products. And I think a very good example is that new mandate of IFC in Finland, starting in 2025, where we can see that things are really taking off towards that discussion. The most important topic I want to share is value, customer value. Implementing a digital twin can be expensive, and it may require the purchase of specific hardware, software, and so forth. So we need to focus here on research and to bring customers together, because the CEO would not decide to take the purchasing decision if this business case is not valid. Which leads now to the last aspect, and that's the segue regarding security concerns. Data concerns, and we have witnessed that since 24th of February last year, that cyber attacks happened in infrastructure. We need to address that from the starting and cannot leave that out of our view. So initiatives like the FedRAMP initiative, IRAMP, or Essential Plus in the UK are relevant for that. I need to come to a close. So how does that conclude? Lots of solutions and aspects exist today, undoubtedly. But digital twins are neither deeply connected, nor ubiquitous, nor a self-runner yet. But there is a broader vision, and we will hear that from Mark, a very exciting one, by the way. So if we as an industry would like to overcome those 5 aspects, which I just have mentioned, we need to work on Horizon 2. We need to work together, and we believe that buildingSMART could be a perfect place, a perfect audience with its community to address and foster this development in the future, and also transform from design and engineering towards a full life cycle consideration. Thanks for your interest, and I'm handing over to Aidan.
Thank you very much, Frank. And really interesting segue into the next presentation around how to get inside buildingSMART some of the design and engineering considerations you need for the full life cycle of the asset. And this leads us nicely on to our next presentation from Michael Gaunt, who's the Principal Account Manager for Information Management at Mott MacDonald, who's going to be sharing a little bit about some of the journey that they've been on in developing open standards within their organization. So Michael, over to you.
Oops. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Gaunt, and I'm here from Mott MacDonald. And my role at Mott MacDonald is I lead the information management account. We are a group of people who are very much based in the practical delivery of projects, and that's very much the perspective that I'm going to bring to you here this afternoon. So I'm going to share with you two things. Firstly, our journey towards a Horizon 2 connected data environment. And then secondly, how we are working with buildingSMART to accelerate and scale our adoption on our major projects around the globe. So this is a very busy slide. There's a lot going on there, and I'd really like to discuss with you all afterwards if any of this is of interest to you. But this is our vision for a Horizon 2 connected data environment. The idea being that we felt that it was appropriate last year to really put our minds together and set out what we felt our vision was so that we can then work towards it more effectively. So Horizon 2 for us, the definition is technology that's very much prevalent in other industries, but that hasn't yet come into ours. So we're looking at a timescale of around 2 to 5 years. It's more concept than the timescale that's important. To break this down, we really look at this in terms of 3 layers. We've got that information creation or information that's streaming in from elsewhere. High quality data models, and you'll notice open standards on there. On the middle layer is where all the information comes together, that connectivity. So that's why we're referring to it as a connected data environment rather a common data environment. And then the third layer at the top, the most important layer, is the user experience. So that's where we're showing our people viewing that information through 3 different forms: GIS, the BIM models, and data. But that's the most important aspect. How do we get those people to be coming together, having effective conversations, talking efficiently, so that then we can deliver our information and deliver the built environment more effectively? And I think really there's 2 key aspects that come from that diagram today. The first one is that connectivity. I certainly dream of a world where on these larger projects, we can bring together clients, partners, stakeholders, effectively by a plug and play system. And then secondly, that effective communication, using the IFC format to be able to mean that we can talk, collaborate, and then deliver things efficiently. But I think what we're also seeing is that whilst this is a huge, exciting opportunity, we're also seeing the real challenges coming through. And I think we are primarily seeing that from our clients, a significantly increased demand for IFC production and communication, certainly over the last 6 months. And then I think the second aspect is the way that we deliver. And the way in which projects are being delivered now is increasing in diversity by the day. And what I mean by that is a wider ecosystem or environment of disciplines coming together, but also where the design is being created. We're working in a global world, so that diversity is proving a real challenge, and therefore why the need for IFC is more important than ever before. So to bring that to some context, introduce a project that we're working on at the moment, High Speed 2. So this is a high-speed rail line in the UK. We're working for a client which is really driving transformation of the industry and really pushing the industry forward. And for us as a delivery organization, so Mott MacDonald working with Sistra and all of our partners, we have a huge challenge bringing those people together. 30+ organizations, over 1,000 designers and engineers working together on a daily basis, and a challenge to deliver over 50 million data attributes. So how do we bring those people together so they can talk, communicate, to be able to ultimately deliver effectively? One of the great successes, and I think that we've learned on the journey of delivering this project over the last 3 to 4 years, is the way that we now set out our requirements. Using the component catalog approach, speaking to the end user and understanding exactly what they want from that information, how they are going to use those data attributes, so that then we can better define it, hopefully in a machine-readable format, so that then we can distribute those requirements out to all of our stakeholders and engineers across the globe. Getting that down on paper with transparency, bringing clarity has been very important. And that's therefore allowed us to bring in our intelligent content approach, so effectively a component catalog, so that we can standardize those components, we can drive their effective reuse and really save time. Once we're starting to really understand our requirements and create the information, we're creating much higher quality information. And really, that is then driving that value to our client and to this project and to everyone who's going to be benefited by this project. And it's allowing us to create those deeper insights, trust the data so that we can get more people accessing and using it, and importantly, trust the data so then we can start connecting it together more effectively. But the challenge is that we're still working to our bespoke requirements here. And as I said, this is a very transformational client, and they're wanting to push forward to adopt IFC. We're also seeing a lot of the software vendors that we work with want to adopt IFC. So our response to that challenge then has been to work with buildingSMART. We at Mott MacDonald own the delivery challenge. We know how hard it is to bring those people together and work in a standardized way. buildingSMART own the standards. They know that in depth. So this is the first proof of concept project where Mott MacDonald have been working with buildingSMART to use this approach to accelerate our adoption. What we've been doing is we've been developing an information delivery specification and then using that to develop our IFC files, validate through the workflow, and really use this small proof of concept to demonstrate that we've got the workflows and processes in place so that we're in the best position to then scale globally and work towards that Horizon 2 vision. So a quick update on where we are with the proof of concept. We're keeping this very simple, highly repeatable components so that the value that we get from this is very quick to be realized on the project. Of course, people are an important part of this. So demonstrating the value from this proof of concept straight away is very important. We've used 2 disciplines, 2 different software types, and we've been able to produce that IDS file, and we're now just going through the final checking process before we will document this to share widely. But I think whilst this proof of concept is small in scale, there's a really important aspect behind it, which is it's about getting the basics and the foundations right before we then go to push this out across, hopefully, our company, but also all of our projects and with our clients. It's about giving us confidence so we can move forward and then be able to scale. Because as I said before, we can see the challenge in front of us with the amount of clients that are asking us now for the IFC standard. But I think importantly, it's driving our approach to interoperability. And I think for me, effective communication comes from that interoperability. Using time to have those conversations rather than using our time simply to transfer the information. And I think that's where we've got to challenge ourselves. With regards to being able to connect that data together, drive those deeper insights, that surely has to be our way that we can start to engage and respond to the really big challenges of today. Challenges of climate change, that our clients have, and really as a society has of our view of how we deliver infrastructure projects. So to summarize, I've shared with you our Horizon 2 vision for connected data environments of the future. As I said, I would really like to hear your views and your comments on this, because I'm sure you can imagine it wasn't a complete consensus every time we held those meetings. We've then shown our project challenges that we've got, and then how we're working with buildingSMART to use this proof of concept project to get our foundations in place so that then we can scale and drive ourselves effectively towards that Horizon 2 vision. So thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you, Michael. That was fantastic. Really great to see some of the progress on the proof of concept, and to know that the impact of the standards that are being adopted and the foundations being laid can really impact the whole supply chain right up to the client as well. So really great stuff. Next up, we have a presentation to talk a bit about, now we've talked a bit about Horizon 2, a little bit about Horizon 3, and we're going to hear from Mark Enzer, who is the strategic advisor at Mott MacDonald, but is also representing our digital twin working group and has been involved in that really since the start. Mark is also a visiting professor at Cambridge University, and he's going to talk a little bit now about Horizon 3. So over to you, Mark.
Good afternoon. It's a really great pleasure to be with you here. So I've got just a few minutes to talk a little bit about Horizon 3, which sounds like it's in the future, doesn't it? But Horizon 3 is not about prediction. It's much more about indicating the kind of outcomes that we want and working towards it. So I'm not going to try and predict the future. I'm not going to try and talk about pods on the moon or robots which are going to make our life easier, or even robots which are going to come and attack us and make our life much worse. I'm not going to talk about that. What I do want to talk about are the kind of outcomes that are important to us and that we have some agency in to try and achieve. And I think that there is a burning platform as we consider this. In fact, it's more than a burning platform. It's a burning planet. And I guess what that means is that we can quite easily imagine some pretty negative outcomes that we don't want, which then means we can turn it around and imagine some big outcomes that we do want. And so what we do want is to achieve net zero. We do want to provide climate resilience. We do want to deliver infrastructure equity and create a circular economy and protect biodiversity. These are the things we want. So I think part of Horizon 3 is about defining the future we want and then working out how we get there. And that's a large part of what Horizon 2 is about. Because Horizon 1 is where we are, Horizon 3 is the outcomes we want, Horizon 2, how we get there. But what you notice about all of these big outcomes, there's something similar about them. They're all part of the same set. And they're the set of big problems that you can't solve in silos. These are system-level issues, which therefore need system-level solutions. And so I think that as we look forward to Horizon 3, we should be considering big solutions which are connected, much more federated, much more radical collaboration to enable us to achieve them. And so if we look at that kind of outcomes-focused world and start with those outcomes, it does become clear that the outcomes themselves need to be aligned. We've got quite a good definition, I think, at the highest level, at the global level, of the type of outcomes we want, and good measures in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But that's not enough. We need the outcomes also to be aligned down into national and regional and local outcomes, where the global outcomes are informing the local ones, and the local, regional, national ones are actually enabling us to achieve the global ones. And so we need this sense of aligned outcomes, but a real massive focus on the outcomes. That's the starting point of defining where we want to get to. But then we can see that if we want these better outcomes for people and nature, there are some things we can play with to get there. And most importantly, there's the built and natural systems. Because if we want better outcomes for people and nature, then we need to be seeing both the built and natural systems. And then we can see that the way of connecting these up, the way that we actually get the outcomes is through the services that these provide. And so how can we improve those services? Well, part of it in the built environment is about really understanding all of the processes and seeing that those processes are actually connected. At the heart of it is use, because that's where we get the value from our built environment. But then seeing all of the connected processes, not just construction, but operation and maintenance and use, and seeing this almost like an infinity loop, because these systems that we rely on for our society to thrive, they're all connected. And so we need to start seeing it as a system of systems, understanding it as a system of systems, and intervening more effectively. And so if that's what we want to do to achieve these better outcomes at a system level, then what kind of tools do we need to get there? Well, we've kind of prefigured that because the whole subject's about digital twins and connected digital twins. So we can see our built environment as this amazing interconnected system of systems that we live within, that we completely rely upon for our well-being. But then we can start to see a digital overlay. And within it, we can see places for individual digital twins. In fact, we can imagine many different digital twins for many different purposes popping up all around the built environment. But then what we can imagine is making connections between them, getting the digital twins to talk to each other, making an ecosystem of connected digital twins. And this is what we see as being really key. One of those key essential enablers to help us to understand systems better, to intervene more effectively, to get to deliver those big system-level outcomes that we desire for ourselves and for our children and for the whole of society. And so this is why we're putting the ecosystem of connected digital twins in Horizon 3. It's really outcomes-focused, it's systems-based, and super important, it's community-enabled, because we can't get there through organizational silos. We need some radical collaboration. And that's why organizations like buildingSMART International are so very important, because we help to collaborate on the rules so we can compete on the game and then get to this desirable state in Horizon 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's really nice to hear about some of those outcomes and going right from the sort of global approach right down to the local as well, which I think is really, really important. Right, we have another final part of this session, which is a presentation from Rita Sanfilippo, who is the BIM General Manager and head of the core team of BIM at Lombardi Engineering. And Rita, thank you so much for all of your work around buildingSMART and IFC, and I'm really keen to hear some of the things that you've been working on. Thank you.
Of you to be here today. We have heard something about Horizon 2, yes. Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and now Horizon 3. Today, I want to show you from a perspective of an engineering company what means the transformation in a digital environment between the Horizon 2 and Horizon 3. And I want to start from one of our projects, one of our digital twin. This digital twin represents an existing tunnel that has been renovated at the entrance of Zurich. The owner, the asset owner, the Swiss Federal Road owner, need to have a digital twin of its asset. Now we are talking about integrated solution of different kind of platforms, and the digital twin of your asset is at the basis of this kind of integration. We need edge to cloud data platform that collect real-time monitoring and processing data from various remote control systems talking together. And the only way to do this is enable a digital twin in a higher level of detail, not only from a geometrical point of view, but most of all for data integration. We need to set up a database in a robust and consistent way. And this is the only way that we can relabel this kind of data and link each component of our digital twin to this kind of remote system in order to control our asset during its life cycle. What I want to talk about you is about digital twin that we can use not only for life cycle management, but also for operation and maintenance, but also to evaluate aspects like sustainability, reuse of our infrastructure. And these kind of aspects can be evaluated only if we can collaborate together in an open beam format. This is the only way. This is the way, I must say, if I am a Mandalorian fan like my son, but we trust on it as engineering company. Okay, digital twin can come not only from existing infrastructure, thanks to a laser scanning survey, for example, of your infrastructure. It is quite complex to replicate your physical asset in a digital environment, but absolutely it's possible. But digital twin can come also starting from the design phase, adding information that you can collect during the construction phase. And at the end, you can deliver your digital twin to the asset owner, but started to think since the beginning how the data that are the crucial point of your digital twin can be managed by the asset, and can be managed not only for cost reduction, efficiency of your process, but also to save in a sustainable environment your sustainable KPI that for a tunnel, for example, for infrastructure, it means savings energy of your systems or training people. I'm lucky because I work yet for an engineering company that takes care of infrastructure, and in particular of underground infrastructure. And this is absolutely sustainable by itself, because the alignment of the Alpine-based tunnel compared to the mountain pass route are themselves sustainable. It is obvious the tunnel construction will lead to as long-term carbon footprint emission reduction caused for energy consumption reduction, as well transportation times and optimized route alignment. Sorry. Okay, this is what I was talking about. But the digitalization of the engineering project underpin the BIM method. The build information modeling method, it itself sustainable, I must say, because we are collaborating all together. It means social KPI. We are working in a paperless environment, and we can produce with digital tools also reduction of life cycle costs. But how can we use build information modeling and open BIM format to obtain a more sustainable future? We can start from the carbon footprint consumption. We can evaluate it starting from the feasibility study, evaluating different alignments. We are now able to evaluate different volumes of materials, quantity takeoff, so we can decide what will be the best alignment of our project in order to obtain results from sustainability aspects. We can also start to think how to collect all the data coming from geological, geotechnical survey at the beginning, but also during the excavation. And these kind of data are so useful to reduce also the cost of inspections and grow the lifespan of our tunnel. During the life of the asset, there probably will be the more economical advantage for asset owner to having a BIM model, the so-called digital twin, in order to link all the components of the model to all the sensoring, monitoring, predictive analysis, Internet of Things that comes from the tunnel or the infrastructure, and use it in order to start to think and remodel the business model regarding operation and maintenance, training people, making inspections with machine-readable approach, and predictive maintenance of the systems. These are very useful and powerful tools that we can be able to engage for our tunnel lifecycle management. But talking about infrastructural project, we talk about big project. So we need to work with several partners. Client take us different mandates, and we need to work together in a federated model. But how can we manage all the advantage coming from a digital twin, moving from the Iron Zone 2 to the Iron Zone 3? We need to start to lose this federated approach and start to think to an integrated approach, a unified approach of our BIM models. And this can be achieved, of course, thanks to buildingSMART International and its effort in delivery interoperable standard, not only for geometrical digital twin, but most of all for the exchange of information that we need. We are part of the IFC tunnel project, for example. We are waiting for the IFC 4.4 tunnel, the IFC tunnel project. Probably here we have mission reefs by which we are developing this kind of needed tool, but we are not talking all about IFC. We are talking about working in a unified environment where every partner, every industry can talk the same language. We are talking about semantic taxonomy. We need to work everyone at the same level of maturity. This is the only way in which we can develop a really useful digital twin. How an engineering company like Lombardi Engineering can use can approach this kind of open BIM process. We have started to talk about interoperability since the beginning. And this is the reason why we want to establish platform inside our company in order to develop instructions, workflow, template based on this interoperable exchange format, thanks to the help of buildingSMART International, of course, because we based our workflow on the BCF format, exchanging IFC and the data dictionary, because we think that the only way in which we can proceed in the future, in the next third horizon, is talking about open BIM and interoperability. The journey will start some years ago, establishing a team of experts. Of course, as engineering company, you need to invest in people that are experts in delivery structured data, reliable schema in a database format, because this is the only way that in which you can reuse this information for different kind of application. Now we can say that we can deliver a project using BIM, and at the end deliver also a digital twin. But in order to do that, it is important for engineering company think about information, take care of a database schema of all the information. This is the only way that you can deliver a digital twin that could be used for in the future for any kind of application. I have the lucky to work with different kind of asset owners, contractor, and engineering partners. And the only way that we can achieve this third horizon in the use of digital twin is to collaborate together, as said before, because we need to start from the requirements coming from the owner that must have in mind the sustainability aspect and also how the model can be used for operation and maintenance. And we need to also collaborate with contractor during the construction itself of the infrastructure in order to acquire data that can be reach the database and the information that we need in our BIM model in order to be used for operation and maintenance phase. So how can we get innovation in balance with the environment in the future? Only working together. Thank you for your attention. At least I want to introduce myself. I'm Rita Sanfilippo, and I'm the manager of Lombardi Engineering based in Switzerland, but we work worldwide. I'm lucky because I can work with some kind of competence people around the world because I'm member of International Tunneling Association. I'm in the steering committee B of European Underground Tunneling Forum, and this can permit me to collaborate with these people, and I think that together we can gain the opportunity to improve our project and improve our future in a sustainable way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita, and thanks to all our speakers just there. So I'd just like to then start bringing up some of the chairs for the panel discussion. Before we do that, I'd also like to ask if we could put up this Mentimeter poll on the main stage. So as I mentioned, you're going to provide some answers for the panel discussion. So please get your phones out and scan the QR code shortly. We'll also put it in the chat for the online audience. We've got a series of questions here, so we're going to be asking your input to these questions, and at any point, if we need to go back to the QR code, because I can't actually remember how many times we've got the QR code there, so please do scan it now, and then you'll have it, and we'll move through this with the panel. We're also going to invite two other people to the panel for their inputs. And first of all, we're going to invite Jakob Beetz, who's a professor of Aachen University. I'm sure many of you know Jakob. He's been in our digital twin working group, and he's been telling us when we've been talking rubbish, basically. So it's really good to have someone that knows the technology and the technical, has the technical expertise to tell us what we need to align better with IFC and some of those things. We're also going to invite Julien Moutte, who has been recently announced as the new CTO of Bentley Systems. So congratulations, Julien. I think you'll be taking over from Keith Bentley. So congratulations on that. And we'd welcome you up as well to get your insights into some of these answers that we're going to get. I see we have 123 likes. Let's get up to 200 people online onto this Mentimeter poll, which will give us some really rich answers. So I think the chairs are ready. Thank you so much to everyone. So there's 8. So if you'd like to come up in any order is fine, I think. I might just position mine like this. I hope you also, as an audience, are aware that we're still struggling with this Horizon 2 approach. So this is hopefully some of the answers that we'll be able to discover here. Yeah, I'm going to turn it at an angle if that's okay. Perfect. So, Jakob, I just thought I might start with you on some impressions from what we just heard from the speakers there.
So, thank you for having me first. One of the core assets, of course, of the buildingSMART organization is to provide. We're making this inventory of the things that we already have and the things that we need for in order to enable these digital twins, in order to really bring them together technically. So some of the things that I think should be focused a little bit more is actually the technical glue bringing things together. We have a good understanding of the wider visions of where we want to go. But if we make this inventory, then I think a couple of things that we have to face as the buildingSMART community and with everybody here in the room, starting at things like IoT protocols. We're not talking about static data anymore. We're not talking about occasionally exchanging issues. We're not talking about just describing what we have, but now things get live. How do we do that? How do we integrate this in the next generation of common data environments? If we're talking about, if we want to watch live data and if we want to make predictions of what actually to do. In the existing environment. Talking about the existing environment that has been shown by Mark, the burning planet. The only things that are good things to build are the things that we don't build. We can't build much more things, so we need to focus with these digital twins not only on the things that start in our computers, but really the things that we already have built. We have built so many things, so let's retrofit digital twins on this, and it starts with reality capturing and with really getting a better understanding of what it is that we have and really feeling the pulse quite more often and at a quite larger, higher frequency. So these are some of the things that we really should focus in the couple of days, the next couple of days also.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm just going to have to let the people know. Could you move on to the next slide, please? And we'll get the first question up. So this is a bit about what type of company you work for. Julien, we just heard a bit about reality capture there. I'd just be interested in your perspective from Bentley about some of the presentation we've seen and something Jakob just said about capturing existing assets and how important that is from a vendor's perspective.
Very important, as you mentioned, because a substantial part of the digital twins of the future are going to be captured from what exists today. We won't have all the drawings, all the CAD data available. So being able to capture reality and bring this together with the rest of the data is going to be of crucial importance for sure. And I'm very excited to hear all those conversations about digital twin, because we've been long-time believers in the value of digital twins for infrastructure assets. And they are here to help improve processes, make the infrastructure better. And it's exciting to be able to talk about that today.
Great. So Mark, we've got a couple of questions coming in here. It's a pretty broad split at the moment, I'm noticing. So government and clients and AEC and software, pretty even split. Is that a good sign for us to be having this representation that we see on the board?
Absolutely so. Because I talked about there being this need for radical collaboration. In that picture of an ecosystem of connected digital twins, we're talking about an information flow across organizational and sector boundaries. So we kind of need everybody in on the party. They don't all have to come at once. You can kind of build it in a very purposeful way, one purpose at a time. But yes, you need all of this. And what I think is that bringing together, in particular, policy and practice and research, that nexus is kind of where the power happens.
I think what we need is more manufacturing and utilities and the other industries as well. So this is a bit earlier when we heard about, we're talking, like Frank said, we're talking to ourselves, but we need to reach out as well at buildingSMART. So that's great. We actually have a presentation from LS later, the TSO at Slovenia. So that's really great. If we move on to the next slide, please. Michael, Mark just talked about this information flow. So what was your thought on seeing that representation on the screen and how that represents the sort of people that we're looking at here?
In my presentation, I talked about the Horizon 2 vision that we had, and we had the people at the top of that image. And I think that was really important because this needs to be people first. And therefore, having representation from a huge variety of people to come along here, the thing that's making me feel is that we need to be able to engage all of those people. They're all going to have a very different perspective on this. The value that this brings to them is going to be very, very, very different. And I think that we're all very much believers in this room and are sure online. So I think kind of one of the challenges I'm kind of thinking of is how do we all make sure that whenever we're talking about this, we talk about the right value and the value that it's going to bring to everybody, because ultimately we need all of those stakeholders on board with this journey. They might not all join us immediately, but we all have to be in this together. So how do we justify the value that's going to come in the short term and the long term?
So Frank, Michael just said we're all believers of BIM and IFC in this room, but are we all believers in digital twins and the strategy based on the answers we've just had?
That's a great question. I think it's a surprise that, we have like 3 times more people who have obviously a digital twin strategy, but as we already observed, the understanding is quite different. So that's why this discussion about having a maturity consideration about the topic makes totally sense in order to understand where to start from the model through a digital shadow and then to a digital twin. But the most important point is that people get started. And even if this market is now, let's say, approximately 5 years out or 5 to 10 years out regarding a fully integrated one, we need to get started. And I think this community here has perfect preconditions to help in this, because I think we have to have constructive, critical discussions about what's out there, but also where are the limitations, and bring that into balance. If we can really achieve that together, then we are not always in that, oh, nothing works, or here internally everything is great. And I don't want to say it's in the middle. No, it's somewhere in between, and we need to come up with advice and hands-on help for those customers, I believe.
Fantastic. Move on to the next slide, please. I think there was a question there, Rita, about getting started. So we talk about digital twins and BIM. How important is it just to get started in your organization on a project with this type of things?
Is crucial because in a company that works in designing field, but also in construction field with owners, it's important to start to think how to set up their own standard in order to deliver BIM projects, because we are not only supplier of design, we are also consultants of asset owner. So we can, and we need to work together with asset owner to set up the right requirements and to have a vision of what, where, and what we have obtained with the use of buildingSMART with building information modeling. Sorry. So a company, of course, needs to invest at the beginning in order to set up this kind of standards, make training of people, of employees, but the result in the improving of efficiency and quality in delivery project for asset owners, but also for all the environment of AEC industry is obvious and comes really soon, I must say.
Yeah, and Bart, we're looking at a screen that's now got less investment than strategies in place. So what do you read about that from these two slides we've just seen?
I think it quite well aligns to the previous slide. There is, of course, a link between strategy and then investing in it. Good to see that also blue is bigger than yellow. That's, of course, says something, I think, about the moment we are in. But also, I do think that there's also that we're at a nice moment in time where you have that flip. We have it in our strategy, but now we should make it work. Can we make that business case, economic value explicit and clear? So I think to get next year, blue higher up and yellow down, maybe that's our purpose, maybe as a working group to a certain extent. I think there's work to be done, not just in developing the technical aspects, the other aspects, but I think also in educational aspects. And I think there is, we should not underestimate that need. And we can dream and think here about digital twins. I would wonder if we would have asked this question to a totally random audience outside at a construction site, what would happen then? But I think that's more a point of consideration and attention in general terms.
Yeah, interesting. So move on to the next slide, please. If anyone's come out of this, there is a mentimeter.com and a code to use at the top there. So I think that would get you back into this this thing. So yeah, the next question here is, what is a key feature of Horizon 1 digital twins that we heard today from Frank? So what is a key feature in your organization around Horizon 1 today? So Julien, how do you see Horizon 1 digital twins at Bentley today?
I'm struggling with the concept because we see a lot of different maturity across digital twins. We have seen accounts who are, I guess you could classify in Horizon 1 with just the mirroring, and others are very much more advanced. So it's each of them is going to find the different kind of features that they need to be able to achieve a specific outcome. They're really outcome driven. Now, can we compare outcomes? This is difficult. I mean, it's each digital twin will have the value that you've been looking for in the first place. A key feature that we see is alignment across disciplines, being able to accelerate and optimize the processes of digital delivery, but also operations, making sure we are introducing more safety, more cost efficiencies in maintaining the assets. So it really depends on every account and every outcome they're looking for.
Thank you. Mark? You're getting busy.
Yeah, I've got something to say which is different, but it's just really interesting to see standards right in the middle there. And what that means is that buildingSMART International has a future. We're okay. The point I was wanting to make, though, about the Horizon 1 is that what I most observe is that individual digital twins are really taking off. If you believe the internet, the annual growth rate for individual digital twins is about 50% at the moment. It's going absolutely crazy. But what we don't see in Horizon 1 is the connection between the digital twins. It's the interoperability, which is exactly the thing that we need for those outcomes that I was talking about in Horizon 3. So this instantly points, I think, to the issue. Individual digital twins, great, Horizon 1. connected digital twins, fantastic, that's Horizon 3, because we all agree, don't we, on those outcomes. Big problem, how do we get from 1 to 3? That to me is the big question.
And Jakob, on that topic, how do we look at some of the answers that we have here and sort of extrapolate that into this kind of chasm we've got to cross?
So interesting that the first thing came up is buzzwords. I learned the last week that we now have on ISO level, we have 59 BIM standards, 59 standards that we already have, that are already in place. So, and what Mark just said is that there are many great solutions that monitor buildings, that manage buildings, that manage infrastructure, and we have working digital twins. And we really should, as a first step to do this into Horizon 2, is to make a very good assessment and an inventory of what we already have, because we cannot have yet another thing that is basically doing similar things as the ones that we already have, because then industry is never going to do anything about it. Yet another buzzword coming up, because we already have so many good things in place, and we've got to be really minimal in the additions we do to that landscape, to that ecosystem, because otherwise we'll really have problems if we say no, we have to start from scratch, and now everything from here on is rose digital twins.
Yeah, and if we advance the next slide, I think what was really interesting about that was that there was a lot of standardization at the center of the core and the things that we do. So now the next question is on what is a key feature of Horizon Digital Twins, Horizon 2 for digital twins. So please submit your answers on this and we'll discuss that. Michael, interested in what your thoughts were on some of those answers and the discussion we just had.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what's was coming up on the screen. And I think really just to build and play off what Mark was saying there about these individual digital twins. The presentation I gave today was very much looking from a project and a delivery perspective. And I think we can see that on the major projects, each discipline really doing good things now. But it's about that connectivity, which is coming up in the center there of the Horizon 2. In the vision diagram that we've got then, with regards to that vision for Horizon 2, about having a common data model, which I think we're all familiar and we've talked about here today around the data and the technology piece. But I think we've also got to think about the common process model. So how does that information actually flow through this system? How does it flow through the different partners of a system? And then also the common organizational model. And I think that's the real challenge that I'm seeing on the projects that are being set up quite recently, is that we have to kind of take a step back at the start to put our people and our organizations in the best connected way so that we can actually give ourselves the best chance to move forward to Horizon 2. Otherwise, we're always going to be on the back foot, that we're starting in silos and then trying to retrospectively connect it together. So I think that's the kind of opportunity that I'm seeing, is actually, before you jump into the detail, actually let's look at that common process model and then that common organizational model. And maybe that's kind of just touching on that kind of interoperability that's in the center of the buzzword there.
Great. And if we move to the next slide, please. Thank you for your answers. I think I see a similar thing, but there was maybe a bit more on there on connections and connectivity as well, which is great. I think if we move to the next slide, please. I think we now look at Horizon 3. So this is the stuff that Mark was talking about. Frank, from your perspective, how some of the answers that you've seen, how does that chime with what you would have expected, let's say, from some of the discussions we've had in our working group?
Yeah, I think if we speak about this connection, what Mark has mentioned a lot, it all starts, where does that happen? So I think it's very important that we realize that cloud is nothing new. Cloud is ubiquitous. And we have even purpose-driven cloud systems around us. So these are like IoT clouds, intelligent app clouds. We have secure clouds where you are really focusing on specific aspects of security in particular. So this is one part which will happen in any case. The second one, what we also see on that level is a consumerization of applications. So that means what we experience today in private, like business to consumer apps, that those applications get stronger, and that we have to consider that in that future consideration as well. Because the digital twin topic as such is so broad And we need to simplify it, like the Apple products have done that as a role model, that everyone out there can easily apply it.
Thank you. And Mark, did you have any thoughts on some of the answers we had here?
Pick up on that that word which has appeared 3 times, buzzwords. It's been in Horizon 1 and 2 and 3. And I guess there's always a problem with buzzwords. But to my mind, the problem is when we're using words with no meaning to them. But I think underlying the stuff that the panel has shared so far is something of very significant meaning. And it reminds me of something that Shakespeare said, but it's something that he said about Romeo and Juliet. So there is an Italian connection. Now, what he said was that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So in some ways, it doesn't matter what you call it. The thing itself is the same. And I think underlying this idea of connected digital twins, the whole idea of federation and interoperability and integration, it actually doesn't matter what you call it. So I think we should kind of remove from our minds the worry about buzzwords. There's real stuff here, but we do need to find the right words which have meaning rather than use buzzwords that have no meaning. So the thing I would really want to say is that there's something real in this. So let's find the right words that we can use to describe it.
Thank you. And Bart, as we move on to the next slide, please, do you agree with that thought around what Mark just mentioned, that it's been called a buzzword, but actually what we need to do is really focus on some of the use cases and practicality of it?
I think you see that coming. That is the big difference between 2 and 3. The outcome-focused area comes in. The economic value, the business case value becomes more prominent in Horizon 3. Although maybe focused quite high level on the system of systems level at that point. I think it's a point of attention also for the earlier horizons, so that we start really from what is the problem we try to solve and not just throw technology at maybe not a problem. So I think it's that's one part. Secondly, I would say that besides that outcome focus, I think we also need to understand that if you get much more the system of system, more and more parts of the system needs to be involved. So scale, the scale we're speaking about and the scalability it requires for the solutions will also become an additional challenge. And I don't see that word here, just on top of my head, but I think you're really making that into a system of system level, scalability, and able to adopt things on a wider scale, not in the front runners, but with the whole community, the whole market out there, will be especially going forward an important aspect to really deliver those better outcomes described here.
Thank you. And if we could move to the next slide, please. Rita, we saw there next to APIs and automation things, actually the topic of sustainability. So how closely aligned is this to sustainable development goals that we see, and how much are we depending on digital twins to achieve these things, do you think, as an industry?
Absolutely, I think it's crucial. We have heard this morning about the strategy of buildingSMART International to deliver IFC5 and open APIs. This is what we need in our industry, because we are putting a lot of effort. We must say this is a challenge for engineers and designers to deliver a digital twin that could be really useful for different kind of application. Digital twin can be used, of course, for sustainability evaluation, starting from the feasibility study, continuing during the life cycle management of the asset, but also can be used to address, for example, climate changes, how they can impact in our infrastructure. We can only use artificial intelligence in order to make predictive maintenance of systems of our infrastructure. But in order to be able to acquire all this big data, like smarter data, I must say, we need to work all together on the same level with this kind of API that can help everyone to talk the same language, at the same level, I must say.
Yeah, and Julien, from here, from a point of view, how important do you see, or the role of standards within digital twins for the future? I mean, this is quite a sort of a great slide to represent the work that we're doing at buildingSMART. And how do you see that from a software point of view?
Absolutely, they're absolutely necessary, and even more so when we look at Horizon 3, where we want to have multiple digital twins collaborating in an ecosystem. It's naive to think that those digital twins will all live in the same platform, right? They will be across multiple vendors, across multiple systems. So I was happy to see API come up in the third Horizon as a keyword. I would even move it to Horizon 2, right? Because I think to get to Horizon 3, we need APIs first. And the standards for this interoperability so that those digital constructs can talk to each other is going to be of crucial importance. And there's a lot to do there, because I know multiple teams are trying to work on this. Our friends at Unreal, Epic Games, marketeers working on the metaverse, the open metaverse. They're trying to find how can we make multiple digital twins in the metaverse appear and talk to each other. We'll have the same problems in multiple dimensions. And APIs and open standards will play a key role in there.
Thank you. If you could move to the next slide, please. Frank, you talked a bit about, advocated for APIs many years ago at buildingSMART, and as a result, you've pushed through this OpenCDE project and now some of the benefits we see around this. So how important do you think the development of future APIs beyond the work that you've been advocating for is important for digital twins?
Yeah, I think I'd like to shoehorn on Julien's argument, and that's actually from your question. I think the APIs are pretty important because we also, as vendors, we should focus on our core strengths, and we should not all solve the same problem, which means the interaction and the flow between the data is very crucial. But to share also a secret, with all of the passion we have started, it was really a painful process to get the OpenCDE document API delivered. And we put lots of pressure behind it, and there are lots of, I would say, companies who supported that, like Trimble, Solibri, and others, just to name, who supported that approach. And we could deliver it in September last year, that it's available. And it's an OpenCDE document API at the moment. So that gives us a little bit of, again, realism also in Horizon 1, how much it takes. And I think what we need to achieve as an industry is also the proper motivation on the vendor side, that we get more buy-in, that we get the big ones, yeah, starting in the alphabet till the last ones, that all buy into it, because then we can really accelerate. We can accelerate, and I think that would also ultimately help us to achieve those sustainability goals, what we are all looking for. Yeah, we need to really eliminate all obstacles to go towards that.
Jakob, do you share that sentiment? I also see that data sharing here is the top key challenge at the moment coming out of Horizon 2.
And one of the biggest problems to overcome that has nothing to do with technical issues that we're all fit enough to sort out is who owns that data, who benefits from that data. Gang Li, I don't know whether he's here, 3 years ago in a digital twin workshop in Munich, asked if digital twins are the answer. What was the question again? And the question is, why don't we know enough about our environment? So why don't we share that data? Why can't we create a basis as an industry, for example, I don't know, for tunnels and for bridges and for roads and for individual buildings, to really learn from that data? Because every one of those data sets is hidden in a drawer somewhere. It's really hard to get people to share that. It's really hard to, and it has nothing to do with technology. But unless we do that, and unless we start looking and collecting and sharing data in a very structured way so that we can compare things, only then can we talk about things like machine learning, things like learning from all that complex data. If we don't share that data, if we don't make this accessible as asset owners, for example, even if it's within our own organization, there's no such thing as any intelligence we can put on top of that, because we need that shared data. And that's a problem in industry, that's a problem in academia, that's a problem in education, that all of the data is hidden in drawers. And that's one of the biggest biggest opportunities I see for such a common infrastructure is to really to offer that data in a way that we can access this and learn from that, because that's what we urgently need to do in order to overcome the gap between what we designed for and what in the end our systems are actually using in terms of energy and in terms of material. We just don't know exactly at the moment. So we have to start measuring, and we have to start collecting data and sharing it.
Thank you. And next slide, please. Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I very much agree with what Jakob was just saying, and I'd love to do a bit of a riff around the types of solutions which might help to address that, that are kind of scalable and secure and resilient. You know, it's something to do with having a distributed model rather than a centralized one, and giving controlled access to controlled data so that people can look after it. You know, I would love to talk a bit more about that, but I can't help thinking that there's a bigger problem than those challenges that are there. Which I think are the humans. It's us. We're going to be the biggest challenge, because I don't think this is just a technical issue. This is a socio-technical thing, and it will be the commercial, the legal, the kind of regulatory solutions which are going to be just as hard and just as important as the technical ones. If anything, the technical stuff we can do. People in this room can make this happen, but there's going to be some human stuff, human and organizational factors, I think, are the biggest issue.
Michael, any thoughts on some of the things or what you're seeing on the screen there around how can authoring vendors accelerate this adoption?
I think just lastly on the previous point around the Horizon 2, I think Mark hit the nail on the head around the people aspect of this. But also I think we should take optimism, perhaps confidence from, the Horizon 2 definition is that this is technology and things that are working in other industries, and that we can actually go to those industries and learn from them. So I think we should make sure that, a lot of humility around this and open our eyes as far as we can to learn from everyone around us, that perhaps some people have gone on this journey just a little bit quicker than us. And I'm sure we can learn from them as we go forward.
Great. And it's good to see OpenBIM at the center of how they can accelerate that adoption. That's why we're here, right? So that's great. If you can move to the next slide, please. I think that clock's wrong, just so our panelists know we still have 10 minutes. That's fine. And I think this is getting to our last question. So, Rita, how can buildingSMART accelerate adoption and development of digital twins?
buildingSMART needs to continue in this process, because you have started yet to push, accelerate the process in order to achieve Horizon 3, I think. Of course, buildingSMART needs a community, and here we are all together because we need to work together with buildingSMART International to push this interoperability. That means not only software vendors, not only owner, not only designer, but passionate people as we are, that put all their effort in the development of common project for improving also the future and the environment, I think.
I feel like I'm saying too much, but I absolutely love Open Twin. Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely brilliant, because I think that the progress that this community has made in OpenBIM is just phenomenal. And I think that if you kind of look back to how things have changed, even the last 5 years, enabled by this community around OpenBIM, it is literally phenomenal. It is changing the industry. And we together should feel pretty chuffed about that. It's really good. And I think that we can kind of move to the next plane by considering Open Twin. That's what it is. Because it's not just about it being open, it's about it being shared and integrated. And we've got open APIs. But Open Twin, I think you should grab that, use that, make it happen.
Well, who said it? Have you got to put a registered mark against it? Because it's about to be taken. But yeah, congratulations for the right answer. Yeah, is that Christoph? Who is that? That's Jugal. Well done, Jugal. And Jugal was the person earlier that was watching on the plane on the way out. Aidan as well, brilliant. So, yeah, before we wrap up, I'll just sort of go around the lineup here and start with Bart. So, Bart, what do you think that buildingSMART can do beyond what we see here and what that we've discussed to accelerate this process?
I think there's one point I want to draw attention to, which was mentioned but not explicit, is about reach out to other communities. And I think we've seen it in Clive's speech briefly. Yeah? We re-established a combination with OGC, but it was also in the Hong Kong chapter story quite explicit. Under digital twins, we need to have a convergence of the IoT, BIM, GIS, or give it a name worlds, and they need to come together. And I think it's not just us as a community collaborate with our industry, but also that those communities start to come together. So I think buildingSMART as a platform also has a duty to reach out to those other communities. There's one mentioned, Digital Twin Consortium, but also to others out there to collectively discuss it, so that we don't end up with 4 versions of the open twin in due time, which we don't want. So I would like to stress out that point.
Jakob, any final thoughts?
And to continue this, not make ourselves guilty of the not invented here ideology of if it's not a dedicated buildingSMART standard, then it's of no use. No, there's so many good things out there, useful things, and operational things that all we need is maybe some domain-specific add-ons to the things that are already out there, because we don't have the time to reinvent anything new anymore.
Frank, what have we learned today from the audience?
Yeah, I think it's a strong confirmation, actually, and I remember our discussions in end of 2018 when you were planning the plenary session or the roundtable for digital twins in Düsseldorf. So I think it's a great result to watch that back, what has been achieved here. So I think buildingSMART can really transform that from its original purpose to that broader scope. But I think it would be useful to link that strongly to the roadmap, which is very specific, because then you have like the broad vision, like a T model, and specific deliverables underneath. And like Jakob also said, we should also reuse as much as possible out there, because we don't have the time to invent all of by ourselves.
Rita, what have we learned from the audience today and some of the discussion we've had?
We heard that probably we are ready now, today, to deliver a digital twin, because we are here together to learn how better this kind of process. We have the instruments. We are now the software vendor that want to participate, to invest in order to develop interoperable tools in order to be able to everyone to work in this environment. And we have also the consciousness of the need to work together. And this is, I think, one of the stronger key points that I want to bring in my community also.
Michael, are we cat herders?
Are we cat herders? I'm not well, I was going to pick up actually on the leadership point.
Okay.
And so leadership, cat herders, whichever way you come at it, I think that we can all take a lot of energy and optimism from what everybody here has achieved. It's very motivating to be amongst people that see a similar vision as yourself. And I think that's great. But can we challenge ourselves perhaps to now go away from this environment, and then next time we come together, bring 2 or 3 other more people along the journey with us? If they're key stakeholders, it's just going to grow and grow. So maybe not cat herding, but I'll use leadership as a key point to take away.
Julien, any takeaways for you?
Big takeaway is the buzzwords that came up in multiple screens. And I think it's important that we help everyone in this room, but also on the market, articulate the outcomes you can achieve with digital twins, right? Because it's all about outcomes, and today we maybe spend too much time trying to focus on the construct without looking at what it can achieve and what it can bring to everyone. And that will help take away that concern that is just a buzzword, help articulate that. And I think buildingSMART can help on that too. Fantastic.
Mark, final word to you.
Wonderful. I really like Julien's point about the outcomes focus. But I mean, for me, the big takeaway actually is the power of the community. And I think that quite often as individuals, we do feel a bit too small and insignificant, and it can't do anything. But actually, we do have agency. When you look at what this community has already achieved, I am absolutely convinced that this community can make a significant and measurable difference in this specific space. And if we believe any of that stuff that I was saying about the big outcomes, the big systems things which matter, that means that we as this community can have a part of being the solution and not the problem. And I find that massively motivating.
Wonderful. So thank you all very much. I'd like to give a round of applause to the panelists today. And to you, the audience, thank you for your participation. And it was really great to have some interaction there. I think one thing the working group would like to commit to is the next iteration of a white paper that we're going to develop. And some of the results that we'll take from here will actually go into that. So thank you for being part of that process. We will also be restarting the working group itself in some format. So hopefully many of you can join and participate and learn and share your experiences as well, because that's the role that buildingSMART does. We're now back on time, which is great. So we're going to break now for 30 minutes before we will hear from some strategic asset owners. So there's been a lot of discussion here today around some of the technologies, but it's really nice to end the day with the last session on some strategic asset owners. So you've got 30 minutes, and we'll be back here at 4:10 for the final session. So thank you all.